All right, so Kevin Rose.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing good. 2 cups of coffee in, so I'm good to go.
2 cups of coffee in. That's
right.
good. The hard stuff. Cool. Well, I definitely want to talk about, people know you for so many things. People know you for, your work on Tech TV, on G4, back in the early days. Do you find that that's still something that a lot of people, remember you?
Every once in a while, yeah. I'll get somebody, normally at airports and things like that are like, love the screensavers, like back in the day. So that was a fun period of my life, for sure.
Yeah, and then of course as a founder, Dig, Pounce, or Vision 3, Milk. But now you are a VC.
Yes.
So I definitely want to talk about that. He's a venture capital partner at Google Ventures. So just overall, how has it been? It's been a few months in now. Is your job as a full-time VC? How are you finding it? Is it different than maybe, because you've been an investor for a long time?
Yeah, I was doing angel investing for probably, I'd say, 3 or so years before joining up with Google Ventures. And it was always a part-time thing for me. So it was something where I'd hear about a cool company, I'd go out, grab a tea or coffee with them, and then make it a casual investment every month or so. But now that I'm actually in this full-time, I'm seeing probably 10, 15 companies a week. So it's a big change, but it's awesome. It kind of plays to my ADD brain in a way. Like I always like seeing cool new ideas, and so the fact that I get to play in a little bit of a bunch of different things is a lot of fun.
Is it hard to keep them straight when you're talking to 10 different companies a week?
Oh,
Do you ever
absolutely.
slip up and call them the wrong name? It's like
for
dating
sure.
multiple people.
It's extremely difficult, especially when you suck at like remembering people's names, which I do. And so I have like this little different flow where I use like OmniFocus, and I have my reminders app and a few different apps to keep everything straight.
And I have to ask about Google Ventures and Y Combinator.
Sure.
I'm not sure how many people here know, probably everyone, but this past week there's been a bit of drama, at least in the press.
Tech drama.
Tech blog drama. Paul Graham, the co-founder of Y Combinator, sent out a memo internally to people in his class criticizing a bit Google Ventures, saying, be careful, what they're doing right now is they're lowballing on valuations. If you are raising around at X amount, they're going to say, well, we'll give your valuation half that. What was the reaction like? Bill Maris has already spoken out about it, but what do you have to say sort of about that characterization? What's this been like inside of Google Ventures? What have you guys been talking about?
Well, I think that, we're absolutely not going out there and just trying to lowball these companies. For us, it's you take a look at the whole class of YC. And I think that typically you see anywhere between, an $8 to $12 million cap on the notes that they've been raising. And so there's a range there, but I think some of those companies are probably worth $15 or $20 million, and others are probably worth 6 or 4. You can't just automatically say that every company that graduates from Y Combinator is a $10 million company. So for me, I think that I'm guilty of this as well. I don't even know if it's something to be guilty of. It's you meet an entrepreneur, you assess how much risk is in the business, and then you decide on how much you want to offer them, like what type of cap. And I think I'm closing 3 YC deals right now. There was a total of 4. 3 of them, we just took the term straight up. It sounded great. I agreed, yes, this is a $10 million cap, sounds great. And then there was one that we couldn't come to terms that I looked at and I said, there's too much risk in this business for me. I don't see it as being, an $8 million company, so I just can't do the deal.
So at least from your perspective, it's not accurate. You weren't having the valuation.
No one is going out to try and half valuations. We have a $200 million fund every year out of Google Ventures. It really doesn't matter when you're doing a small little 100K investment. We're not trying to can we save a little extra money or get a little extra valuation here? That's not, for us, for me personally, when I see a company, it's really just trying to figure out what is the value of this company? And they're all different.
Right. I talked to a couple founders who have gotten investments from Google Ventures just to ask them, about this valuation thing. And both of them said, no, the valuation wasn't an issue, but the due diligence process was longer with Google Ventures than it has been with other firms. Is that something that you've heard, that the due diligence and the lawyers and the paperwork, that you guys are more strict about that?
Yeah, I don't know that we're stricter about it. I think that in coming into Google Ventures, I had taken funding when I had Milk, my last startup, from Google Ventures, and we took 200K, I believe, from GV. And the process was definitely a little bit longer than I was used to. And so one of the first things when I joined up is I said, hey, for seed style deals, like something that is 250K or less, like we need to get this process a little bit more fine-tuned. And so that's what I've been working on personally since I've joined, and I think we've come a long way. Like if you talk to the YC companies that we're funding now, it's pretty much the same amount of due diligence that all these other investors are doing in these companies. And I think that if you take a look at Google Ventures, I mean, we do deals that are $5, $10 million deals, which absolutely require a deep amount of due diligence. It just makes sense when you're investing that much capital, right? And so it's just figuring out how to pare that down when you're doing something that's a 100K deal or 150 or 200K deal. And we're getting there. And we've worked closely with a bunch of other firms, Gunderson and others, that have helped us with this, and I think that we're in a great place now.
So you personally have made
that absolutely.
your...
I really wanted to see this process streamlined. And we've made a lot of steps to make it just a very easy, painless process now for startups.
Have you personally heard from Paul Graham in the past few days?
I haven't. No, I haven't heard anything from him.
So,
but I have nothing bad to say about Y Combinator. I think what they're doing is great. They've obviously producing great companies. I'm investing in several of them. I think that it's just like anytime information gets spread through 2 or 3 or 4 different people and it finally gets back to Paul, sometimes the message can get confused. And obviously this was an internal email that was meant to stay internal, and it just got leaked. And nobody's mad at anyone. I think it was just one of those things.
And so you've mentioned the investments that you've made. I think just one you've really been public about, though, Rally. Right, the startup Rally. Is there anything else that you've made that you can tell us about?
So Bufferbox is one that we just closed on out of this current YC class, which I was a big fan of. Bufferbox is essentially setting up kiosks in different locations for people to receive packages at. And they have some really interesting stats, like 40 to 60% of packages fail on their first attempt. So you have companies like Amazon. Everyone's been plagued with this. You get home and you see a little sticker on your door saying you missed your package, and it really sucks. So basically, they're putting these different kiosks inside of Walmarts and other locations that you can essentially, when you're checking out, you just choose to have it shipped to your Bufferbox, and then at your leisure, you just walk into a Walmart or wherever, and you go back and you put in your little code. The door pops open, and you take your package. So it's really nice.
It's an ambitious idea. It seems like you like ambitious ideas, when you talk to different companies. Is there a certain style or something that you think you've become known for, or a niche that you really like to play in when you think about investment?
It's funny. I think that you hear of these investors having all these different strategies, and I think that for me personally, I'd be lying if I would say that I have this like grand vision for something much larger. I think that when I see a deal and I hear about a company that is doing something that's really disruptive, that immediately grabs my attention. I don't want to do the Pinterest for cats or something that's just a modification of an existing idea. So, I really like, I'm very surgical about the investments that I do. I don't tend to do a lot of deals. I'm not like an index type of investor that'll do 50 or 75 deals a year. I want to be known long term for actually adding a lot of value to these companies, and I think that the only way to really do that is to pare down the total number of deals that you're doing so that you actually can spend time with these entrepreneurs to help them out. And so, I'm probably one of those investors that'll do, 10, 12 deals a year, but there are going to be companies that I really believe in. And, if you take a look at the portfolio that I've had over the last few years, it hasn't been that many companies. It's just the ones that I'm really super passionate about.
What's been your best investment in terms of return, personally, or obviously not with Google Ventures yet? But.
Well, there's a handful that, like from the Fabs and the Twitters and others that have not yet seen exits. I think that I was there at the very beginning of NGMoco, which sold for $200 million, and then there's I'm in Like With You, the OMG Pop guys. I was a very early angel, and that was a very long. That was my first investment, actually.
Really?
Yeah, it was I'm in Like With You, and which later turned into OMG Pop, and then Zanga bought them for I think $250 million or something like that. But that was the first deal I ever did.
Wow, so that was a nice one for you.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. Like I loved the team, and it was kind of one of those things where I just really fell in love with kind of the next generation kind of UI and UX that they were doing back in the day. And then they kind of went through this period of just, they had a handful of semi-popular games, and they, of course, had that really big breakout game recently, and that's when Zynga scooped them up.
I want to ask about, just in general, your sort of relationship with the press. You're kind of a unique person that your career has kind of been very public. I mean, it started out as a host on television, and so
Sure.
kind of on this side of the fence, but then as a founder, you know, famously that Business Week cover, how this kid made $60 million in 18
Worst
months.
cover
How
ever.
old were you when that cover?
I don't know, like 25 or something like that.
So kind of a kid.
35
but,
now, yeah.
Right. But that was good and bad, and then you know you've gotten a lot of criticism. There was a Business Insider article recently, kind of about your career. How do you think about the press? How has your relationship with us reporters? Where do you like kind of?
I mean, it all comes and goes in cycles. I think that, you know, when I was doing the Dig thing, the press realized very early on that if they would write a positive article about Dig, their article would be on the homepage of Dig, in which case it would drive them a lot of traffic, which was awesome. And then they realized that they write a negative article about Dig, it'll be on the homepage of Dig, which drives a lot of traffic. So that happened over and over again. And so, you know, it's just something where you have to develop kind of a thick skin around this stuff and just go with it, especially when you're putting yourself out there as much as I have in the last few years. But, you know, I'm friends with the press. Like, I don't know.
Was there ever an article, like what's the article that's happened that's made you sort of the most mad, or, you know, that you really felt was incorrect or was portraying you in a bad way?
I mean, that recent one from Business Insider where it mentioned the fact that I don't have focus on my companies, I think was a little unfair. I mean, I never interviewed with that writer. Like they said they tried to reach out to me, but I never received it. And then it talked about the fact that how I really wasn't involved in Dig. And I think that there's, you know, Dig, it's, gosh, going on 9 years old at this point. So I think that the first 6 or so years, it was my baby, and like I was totally involved there first thing in the morning, and it was like I would stay up late at night, and it was something I was obviously really passionate about. And then, you know, as every company goes through their ups and downs, like I think that later on, towards the tail end, when I stepped out and then stepped back in, it was like at that point in time I had kind of emotionally moved on, and so I, you know, was in and out of the company there, and that made sense, but it wasn't really a very well balanced article. And then they talked about how I'd never really had a successful startup, and, you know, I think that from an exit point of view, Dig wasn't really a successful exit. Revision 3 made our investors a lot of money.
Yeah, it just sold
to Discovery
a month ago?
recently, which is
Right.
a company that I co-founded. So it's like, it didn't even mention that in the article. So it's stuff like that where you feel that, you know, you wish you would have had a chance to talk to the person writing the article, but that's okay. That's just how it goes.
I also want to ask, because you do this great series, I'm not sure if you all have seen it, it's on YouTube, it's the Foundation
Yes.
video series. You go and you interview people. You get a lot of pretty cool people to interview. Most recently it was Elon Musk, you know, O'Malley recently.
Elon Musk was awesome. He's such a nerd in all the right ways.
Yeah, who's your favorite person to kind of shoot the shit with in the industry? I mean, maybe not just one person, but who out there has a really good mind that you like to talk to?
I think that probably my favorite foundation so far that we've shot has been Jack Dorsey. I like how you know, he thinks about things. When he started he talked about how he started Twitter and how he thought about information moving around a city. And I think that holistically he just steps back from the problem and just has this big vision and can see things moving in ways that other people can't. And I like that. Philip Rosedale also is someone to follow. He was created Second Life, and now he's doing a startup called Coffee and Power. And he's just so brilliant. You just know he's going to do something huge. And like this coffee shop that he created here in San Francisco, if anyone's visiting, they should go check it out. It's called Coffee and Power. And like you literally walk in and you kind of log in, and it shows your name up on a board, and it says, what you're known for. So you log in and it says, I'm an application developer, I'm good at Python, blah, blah, blah. And like you sit down and you see all the other people and their faces and their status, and you can just walk up to someone and say, oh, you're a designer, I'm looking to code this. And you share time, and he has this weird kind of back-end credit system, like this other currency exchange to power the whole thing. And like this could only come out of Phillips Brain. Like he's just such a smart dude. So
it's funny, it's like opposite of Second Life, but then almost so opposite that it kind of comes around together, because Second Life is completely virtual world, and then Coffee at Power is physically getting together and meeting and talking.
Yeah, and hearing his stories about how when he was the CEO there, he had people take a poll about how well he was doing. It was an anonymous poll as CEO, and he always said if he drops below like 50%, he'll quit. And so like it was really up to the masses of his company to determine whether or not he kept his job. And it was just like,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was some pretty cool stuff. So
wow,
that's been a lot of fun to shoot those videos.
In your career, over the past 15 years, what's the best piece of advice that you've received? Is there one kind of thing that really changed the way that you approached life?
I think that Jack Dorsey, actually, in my first foundation video, said it best. And he was like, edit your team, and that means that you're just gonna make bad hires. When you're a startup and you're going out there and you're bringing in people and you're growing so fast, and you have to just trust your gut and make sure to constantly be editing and pruning your team and making sure that if someone is there that is just going against the grain and that you've tried to have a discussion with and they're causing more disruption than anything, it's better for them and for you as a business to just part ways. And so I really thought that was a sound piece of advice. Other than that, something that I try to pass down to the companies that we're talking about funding, it's like figuring out when and where and how to structure your company as you grow. So how many board members to have. I've seen some companies that have a big board at the seed level, and I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing?
Yeah.
This is going to be out of control soon. And so I've seen other companies where they've come to me and they said, we're making a lot of money, but we're looking to raise some cash right now. And I've honestly said to them, like, why are you raising money? You don't need to raise money right now. Like, don't give away a piece of your company. Like hold on to that. You want to keep control for as long as possible. And that's one of those things that I may lose them as an investment right then and there, but I know later on when they come back and they said that was solid advice, they'll look to me to fund their entire round. So it's okay to be honest and tell these people to do the right thing for their business, not try and just take their company away from them.
Did any of those overfunding or over board staffing lessons, did those come from Dig?
We had an awesome board at Dig. I cannot complain about our board at Dig. I've been on and seen other boards that were a little dysfunctional, but...
Name names. Who is the most dysfunctional board that
yeah,
you've been a part of?
I can't name names, but we were lucky in that we had Mark Andreessen and David Z on our board, and those guys have been brilliant mentors of mine for years.
And I also want to ask, so the best advice you've told us, but is there a piece of advice that you've gotten that was just the worst advice you've ever received, whether you took it or not? But is there, an axiom or piece of advice out there that
You're
people
using my
say?
tricks on me. This is exactly the questions I ask in Foundation.
Really?
Yeah, they're always
Maybe
difficult to answer.
But it's nice to turn the tables on you on these.
The worst piece of advice, and I won't say that, I don't mean to apply this to Dig, because people will take it that way, but it's very easy when you're first starting out as a younger entrepreneur in your early 20s and you've never done this before to say, like, I don't think I can be the CEO and I want to give control of my business to someone else. And, I think that Jay, as CEO of Dig, he helped me raise capital for the very first time. There's a lot of things that were awesome. But you have to realize when you're giving away control of your business to someone else, like even though you're still the founder, you're actually giving them the power to make a lot of decisions in your company. And just really make sure if that's something you end up doing, that it's not something to take lightly. I mean, this is like a marriage to that person, and you really have to make sure that you're able to work through those ups and downs and that you have the right match there.
Do you think you're going to get that itch to start a company again, or are your founder days behind you and now it's VC investing?
The problem with being an entrepreneur is it never really leaves you. It's like always in your core, and you have all these ideas. So like I have little books that I keep with me that I'm always writing down various different ideas of projects I'd like to see the light of day. But I think that one of the cool things in working with companies and startups is, as an investor, is you get to sit down, you have coffee with them, you give them 10 ideas, they maybe go back and implement one of them, and then you actually see your little baby idea launched, and it gives you that same like hit of dopamine as if you had built it yourself. And so that's a lot of fun, and that keeps me excited about it feels like I'm building something in a way. But I'm really enjoying my time at Google Ventures. I've been blessed with the partners and the staff there, and so I'm committed to being there for quite some time. So I have no plans, but 10 years from now, who knows? But I'm here to help startups for now. I think that it's time for me to take a break and give back for a while.
And we have a few minutes, and I still have more questions, but if any of you have a question, I think that we can do them. Are there microphones?
Do you have the setup?
Do we have them set up? Yes, we do. There's a spotlight right there and right there. So if you have any questions to ask Kevin, queue up. I also want to ask, because a lot of people liked your gadget reviews back in the day on screensavers and these things. Is there a gadget or something that you've bought recently? What's your kind of favorite? Are you like a watch guy?
I'm not a watch guy. I don't understand watch guys. No offense to guys that wear watches, but we have cell phones that have the time on them. It just seems like extra clutter that you have to like carry around. Although there's some cool watches out there, but it's just like they're so expensive, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I think that's the point usually. If you're a watch guy, it's that it's
right.
expensive.
You have something you're like, yeah. I'm not going to name names, but I met one investor one time, $300,000 watch on his wrist, and I was like, are you kidding me? I wouldn't even have known that until I had no idea that watches are that expensive.
Like secret signaling or something. We have a question right here, it looks like.
Hi, Kevin. One quick question. What does Google get out of its venture activity besides its financial return? Maybe you might talk for a minute about that. Compared to Intel, let's say.
Can you repeat that question? It's hard to
hear. What does Google get out of owning a venture capital arm?
What does Google get out of the venture capital arm besides the return, and maybe compare it to Intel Ventures, for instance?
Yeah, so we're not a strategic fund. So we're not, when Google Ventures, this is something I always have to explain to entrepreneurs. When Google Ventures goes out to make an investment, we're not making the investment because we think it's going to be a great fit with Google proper. So for us, I think that in the founding of ventures, we kind of believe that if you're doing something great for startups and for the general internet ecosystem, the rising tide kind of lifts all boats. So, at ventures, we can invest in things that are competitive to Google. We're just trying to take some of the capital that we have at Google and redeploy it back out into the startup world and really help fund the next new big thing. So we're looking for very big, bold ideas that are going to help further technology in general.
Is the money from Google Ventures and Google, are there separate financial entities?
Right, so we're a separate little LLC fund thing, and then Google comes in as our single LP, and then they give us that check every year to go out and invest. But there very much is a wall there. So it's like, we have companies that are doing things that are competitive to Google, and we don't go and take that information and share it back with Google. But at the same time, we have access to Google. So, if an Android application developer comes to me and says, I want my app featured in the Android Play Store, I can't feature it in the Play Store, but I know the person to talk to that if, to get their app out there and connect them up to the right people. So we have the benefit of being connected to Google, which is nice.
And who is next? Maybe the next mic?
Sure. Hey, Kevin. My name is Nick from Bartender.
Hey, Nick.
So I was at the hackathon here earlier, and all these things I kind of go to, I tend to see just more and more social apps. From your investment expertise, do you kind of see social as still being something big, or do you think it's more time to go to the B2B enterprise sort of startups?
Yeah, for me, I think that social is always going to be this layer that we put on top of our applications to help as a as a distribution channel for our content, whatever it may be. So I don't know that I'm seeing a whole lot of like new social networks but there is a little bit of fatigue going on. Like whenever there's a new app that requires me to go and redefine my friend graph one more time, it's just a nightmare. But I'm not like actively going out and looking for something that is just, quote unquote social. I think that for me, there always has to be a strategy, especially if it's consumer internet play, on how they interact with social and how they use that to help further their distribution of their app or whatever it may be. But I don't see it as like something, I'm not looking for a new social network or something like that.
Are you looking at B2B stuff, or
what's that?
Do you think like B2B enterprise solutions are getting bigger, or?
I think that I'm really excited about the enterprise space in general, and that it's actually kind of getting sexy for the first time. Like it feels like with Yammer and a lot of these SaaS deals and things of that nature, like I feel like we're finally starting to see really well-designed, non-corporate, but yet corporate apps. And I think that's a fun space to actually make, like the Fortune 500, like a cool and fun thing rather than this old stodgy back-end software that most companies have to deal with.
We're running a little late. We have time for one more quick question.
Hi, my name is Shannon Clark. I think we've met a couple times. But a question, what are the areas that you're not seeing enough of? You said you're meeting with 15 or so entrepreneurs a week. What are the things that you're just not seeing enough of?
Well, I think that there's a temptation to go out there and take various startups over the last 6 to 12 months, clone them or create a slightly different version of them, and then launch that as a startup. And I see a lot of would-be entrepreneurs doing that, taking kind of like a page out of someone else's book and saying, well, no, mine's actually completely different because it's the Pinterest for this. And that is frustrating because that's not something that they're not really the leader in that space, and that isn't really an original idea, so that doesn't give me much confidence in where they're going to take their product. So as far as actual sectors that I'm not seeing a lot of, I'd like to see more health and education startups. I think that there's not a ton of that. I run probably once a month I'll see something that's health or education related, but I think there's a big need there and a big area for disruption.
Great. Well, thank you, Kevin.
Yeah,
I'm sorry
thanks for having
we're
me.
out of time
Thank you.
here, but thanks, Kevin, and thank you all.
Thank you.